The Unfortunate Little Schnauzer is the 17th episode of the third season of 2.5 Men. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it starts off in the grocery store with Charlie and Alan, and Jake whizzes past on a trolley, which was quite fun. And then we meet a character called Archie Baldwin. He's played by John Lovitz, and Charlie introduces him as King of the Jingle Writers. And it turns out that Charlie is actually nominated for an advertising award, but he wasn't going to go. But now that Alan has found out about it, he's determined to make Charlie go. Will he be successful with that? Well, we find out pretty quickly. But first of all, we are outside. Charlie is on the deck, and he and Rose are listening to jingles. It seems like Charlie is starting to think about going. And Rose asks Charlie to talk with Gordon because she needs her space, which is incredibly ironic, and I think that's definitely what they were going with. I don't know how I feel about Gordon as a character. I think I like him. I certainly like the performance, but I don't know if I like the character. But Rose wanting some space is definitely pretty interesting. Charlie then goes back in the house, and we see him at the piano. And Alan is looking at the Jingle Awards on the computer, and he's trying to convince Charlie to go. And I think Charlie makes a really interesting point. He says it doesn't matter who wrote the best jingle, it's about who has the sexiest product. Now, I don't know anything about jingles or the advertising agency, but I believe he has a point. The film industry is very much the same when it comes to the big awards. There are always going to be certain kinds of films that are more likely to win than others. And there are, of course, exceptions, and whenever we do have an exception, it's quite nice. But in general, there are certain things that are just going to win because people think that they're better in general. And I think Charlie has a valid point here that it's unlikely that an award will go to a jingle for hemorrhoid cream rather than a jingle about a fast car, because that product makes you happier and you're more likely to enjoy it. So I think he has a good point there. But Alan is still determined to make Charlie go, and Charlie says, do not tell their mother. And we have this really great, brilliantly written, fun exchange between the two of them, where Charlie points out anything positive, Evelyn is able to turn it into a negative, and he challenges Alan. And Alan says a positive thing. Instantly, Charlie is able to give this brilliant negative response that I could absolutely hear Evelyn saying, and they go back and forth, and Alan says something positive, something where you'd think, how can anybody find a negative in that? And instantly Charlie says something that I could absolutely hear coming out of Evelyn's mouth. I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it, and I wish it went on for longer, but at the same time I think it went on for the perfect length of time, really. Evelyn is then in the kitchen the following morning, and Evelyn is trying to set Charlie up on a date, and Charlie says he can't go on a date with this random person because he has a thing. And to convince Evelyn he's not lying, he shows her the invite to the award ceremony. And I didn't see this bit coming, but once Charlie is out of the room, Evelyn tells Alan, see, I told you I could make him go. I had absolutely no idea that's where she was going with this, and I rather liked it. So Charlie is going, and we cut immediately to the next scene, which is the award show. And everybody's there looking very dapper, very smart. Jake's there, he's clearly bored, but nevertheless, he is there. And Archie's not an unlikable character, but certainly in the moment, he's not exactly being very helpful for Charlie. Evelyn seems to favour Archie more than she does Charlie, which is not great, but not surprising. And then we get this, I don't know if I want to use the word delightful or awkward, maybe awkwardly delightful performance by Archie of his song for saving the orphans. And it was very, very catchy. And then after that, I think the pacing is brilliant at the award show. It doesn't drag it out too much, because we then immediately cut to the scene after in the parking lot. Jake is actually singing the Save the Orphans song, and we can see clearly from how dishevelled and unhappy Charlie looks that this year was another year when he didn't win, which is unfortunate. I would have liked him to have won, but at the same time, I'm not too disappointed that that's not where the episode went, because it was still pretty believable. I feel like maybe one could argue if he did win, it wouldn't have felt realistic, given how much everybody seemed to absolutely adore Archie, and there could have been an element of favouritism there. I don't know. But certainly, I don't mind the way things went. And then Charlie is back at the house, and he actually has a great moment with Rose and Gordon. He wouldn't say it's a great moment, but it worked very well, where he basically convinced Rose and Gordon to stay together and that they're actually good for each other. And it was a nice thing that Charlie did, and he was the voice of reason in that moment. And Alan tried to praise Charlie for doing this good thing, even though he was certainly not in a happy place. He did this thing for other people, and, well, it ended up with Alan flinging himself down onto the beach as well. So, not a bad ending at all. It's not a bad episode. I don't think it's necessarily one of the most memorable episodes. I think the main reason it works quite well is because of the character of Archie. John Lovitz obviously does a really great performance, and I rather liked Evelyn in this one as well. I usually like Evelyn, that's not that strange, but for me, most of the comedy came from Archie and Evelyn, but my favourite moment is definitely when Charlie is challenging Alan to find a positive statement that he couldn't rebut as if he were Evelyn. That for me is the biggest highlight. But in general, it's a good episode. Not too bad at all. There's not really anything about it that doesn't work well. The pacing is great. The pacing at the awards show, particularly, is brilliantly done. And I have no complaints. The Unfortunate Little Schnauzer is definitely a pretty decent 2.5 Men episode.